Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey now, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and today we're going to be taking a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Magecraft, and it's from Crimson Production. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to their official Kickstarter project page, where you can find out more information than I could possibly tell you here about Magecraft, and hopefully consider backing the project. You can click on the card up in the top corner of your screen, and that will take you to the link, or down in the description section below this video, you will also find the link. Now, what is Magecraft? This is a competitive game for 2 players, although you can purchase another set of the game and play with more players than 2, and the goal of the game is to eliminate your opponent. Now, you are all spellcasters, young spellcasters who are trying to get more spells and become more powerful, and the way that you're going to defeat your opponents is by either, knocking them out completely or getting so good at the magical arts via victory points, essentially, that you're going to be able to overcome them and win on your own. You're going to get new spells, building off of the basic spells that you start off with, and the central mechanism of the game is bag building, which is a very popular mechanism nowadays, where you have a bunch of magical gems that you use to fuel your spells, and you'll gain more during the course of the game, and different types as well. So, let's go ahead and give you a brief overview of the game with a prototype version of the game, so just keep that in mind. Then we're going to come back, I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, I'm going to give you a quick look at Magecraft. This is a game designed for 2 players. Now, you can play the game with more players, but you're going to need to get an additional set of the game. The goal of the game is to either reduce your opponent to 0 hit points by eliminating every one of their hit point gems, or ripping through their defenses and accruing 20 gems into your scoring area. If you're able to do that, then you're going to win the game as well. So it's either last man left standing or 20 gems. Now, at the start of the game, you are going to take a player mat and put it in front of you. There are other player mats other than the 2 that I have out here on the table right now. Just to show you those real quick. You have this Earth Golem type creature. It's like Dark Wizard, Sorcerer, and this Fire Mage. And notice that they all have, what's different about them is up in the top corner, they all have a different cantrip. Every character has a different cantrip that they can use, which is casting, using any kind of gem as an action in order to do some sort of special effect. So this Fire Mage here can always do an attack. It's a very weak attack, but it is something they can do if all else fails. Now, in addition to a player mat, every player is going to take 3 of all the main types of gems, the water, earth, light, and fire gems. They're going to put them along the top of their board, and that represents their hit points. You're going to take the same amount of gems in the same dispensation and put them into your pouch. This is a pouch building game, so you're going to put those in there, and then you'll randomly decide who's going to go first. If you are the first player, you're going to draw 4 gems, keep 2 that you want, randomly from your bag, keep 2 that you want, put the other 2 into your discard pile. If you're the player who's going second, you'll do the same thing, but you're going to get to keep 3 of those gems, not just 2 of them. Each player also starts off with 3 basic spells. You have Magic Missile, Meditation, and Mana Tricks. And if you look a little closer at each of those cards, you have a few things of note. First, you have the name of the spell and just a simple picture representation of what it's doing, but then along the top, you have the casting cost of the spell. Now, these gems, you'll notice, are a little bit different than all of the more general gems that I showed you before. Those rainbow-colored gems mean that you can use any gem you want of any color for the costs for these basic spells here. And then below there in the box, you have one of the different actions that you can do. So, for instance, with Meditation, that's going to enable you to take a shield action, which is going to let you take a gem either from the Academy, which is all of the reserve of gems you have off to the side, 8 of each, or from your discard pile and put that gem into your shield area, which is going to help protect you from attacks. And there are other types of actions you can take, of course, as well. For instance, Mana Tricks here lets you do the Vanish action. You can move a gem from your hand or your hit point area to your score area. Remember, you only need 20 gems in order to win the game. The Magic Missile, of course, is going to deal damage. So those two symbols there, are the symbols for attacks. When you perform an attack, you discard a gem from the opponent's shield area to their discard area, and if that shield area is empty, you get to move a gem from their hit point area to your score area instead. The other two actions that I have not mentioned quite yet are actually detailed on one of these cards out here, which is the Restoration card. This one's going to cost you a water and a light, and you'll notice it has 2 heals and a draw. The draw ability lets you randomly draw a gem from your bag, and if there's no gems left in it, you put all your gems in your discard area from your discard area into your bag, and then draw a random one from it. That's the bag building / deck building aspect of the game. Heal lets you take a gem from the Academy, again the Academy being the reserve of gems, and put it into your hit point area, and if there's already 12 gems there, which is the full amount of your hit points, then you get to move it into your scoring area instead. Now, since we're over here, all these cards out here are the common stock of spells that you can learn during the game, the advanced spells. You are always going to use Absorb, Minor Cure, and Fireball. Notice they all have different special abilities, attacks, and heals, and the shield. But then you also have 8 random ones, and the ones I just happen to have out here now, and there are more than that in the base game, are Lightning Bolt, Giant Growth, Tai Chi, the Restoration spell I talked about, Meteor Swarm, which is extremely powerful, and so on and so forth. Now, over here to the side, there are these 2 gems. That is the learning cost of the spell. Those are the gems that you have to spend in order to actually learn this spell and put it into your spell book. In fact, let's just jump right into what spell books are and what they mean. So I already talked about the spells that you have over here in your player area. Well, each of these different rows is called a spell book, and you're going to be adding more spells there later, but there's some important rules you have to follow first. So when you go into turn sequence, starting with whoever the start player is and going to the next player, the first thing you have to do is move any number of gems from your shield area into the discard area. So you put a bunch of gems in your shield area, those are going to have to go into the discard area at this point. But then it's time for your casting phase, which is optional, but this is when you're going to actually use the spells that are in your spell book if you want to. First, you choose one and only one of your different spell books. You must cast the spells from left to right. So as you gain spells during the course of the game, they're going to go out like this, and you can choose to put them on whatever spell book that you want, but once you lock them in there like that, you're going to have to continually cast them from left to right in the future. You'll always cast the spell that's all the way to the left, and if you have enough gems after you've got done resolving that spell, whether it's attacking, healing, drawing, whatever it might be, then you're going to move on to the next spell, and you can repeat the process. Try to cast it if you can, and then if there's another spell in line, go to that one. Now, after that phase, it is time for learning and possibly revision. So this is where you're going to go out to the marketplace of spells and choose the one that you want to hopefully discard gems in order to purchase and then put into one of those spell books that I just described. Next is revision. That's where if you have 4 gems in hand, you can choose to discard those 4 gems and then rearrange all the spells in your spell book. So if you're not happy with the way that the spells are during the course of your turn, you can get, once you get to the revision phase, then and only then can you move them around. And finally, you get to master one of your spells. You take one of the spells that you purchased from out in the marketplace and flip it over to its mastered side. And while it's on this mastered side, it can give you some special bonuses. Basically, the leftmost gem of the cast cost on the master spell gets turned into a golden gem. When you cast a master spell, the golden gem can be reused to pay the cast cost of the next spell. If there's no gems that the cast cost of the next spell matches the color of the golden gem, you move the golden gem to your discard pile instead. And of course, as I mentioned, don't forget every player has a different cantrip that they can always do if there doesn't seem to be a better option. And of course, you can always play the game multiplayer with other sets of the game. It is a bit of a different experience, but the same core gameplay is there. Remember that your goal is to either be the last one standing or to have 20 gems in the scoring area of your character sheet. If you're able to do that and outwit your opponent by casting the best spells possible and making the most strategic and efficient use of your gems, you will be the winner of Magecraft. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. Thematically speaking, the idea of dueling wizards is not a new one, but it's very interesting in Magecraft because it gets right to it. You are fueling your spells, you are slinging them back and forth, you're learning spells directly from all the options that you have out in front of you, building off of the spells that you already have, making your spell book, and then triggering those spell books to cast all these different things. So it has a much more visceral feel than so many other games do that sort of feel disconnected between the theme and the cards that you actually play to influence the mechanisms of the game. This one feels like you're literally fueling those spells with those gems, which goes hand in hand with the components of the game, the whole bag building aspect of it, and having those different colored gems and being able to use those to fuel your spells. It's a really interesting thing in how they blend those two things together, the theme and the components. Also, it has very charming artwork, very unique looking artwork that I haven't seen in a lot of other fantasy games, which honestly tend to have generic looking fantasy artwork. This one goes a step beyond that and has a unique design style all of its own. And again, together when you have all these different cards out there on the table, and you also have all these gems that you have to use laid out, it's a very, very intriguing look that definitely turns heads as people are walking by and watching you play. Going into the mechanisms more, as I already mentioned, you have these different spells that you're trying to gain, and it's very interesting how you can both use the spells that you have and what you can focus on doing, because you have different options. I mean, you can go purely defensive and then just try to have like the best type of deck to perhaps do vanishing and get more score that way. And in that regard, in a very broad sense, you can either just go on the offensive to take out your opponent, or just get as many gems into your scoring area as possible. Or you can diversify, shore up your defenses, try to rip away at your opponents and maybe take their gems as scoring points as well. There's so many different types of options that you have for all these different types of spellcasters. And the cantrip that you have access to can also give you a little bit of direction as to which way you want to go, because that's going to be something you can always do just in case, and it's an easy thing for you to do. So it gives you some focus, and that's an interesting aspect too. It's always great when there is a game where everyone feels at least a little bit different, and Magecraft has that as well. So I think this game is going to appeal to a lot of people because first off, it's very easy to learn. It's very easy to set up. It's very quick to get going. Gameplay is fast and visceral, but at the same time, it still has that strategic depth and bite to it. So I think a lot of people are going to potentially be interested in the game, not just because of its theme, but also because of the gameplay as well. And if any of the things that I've talked about now or during the overview strike a chord with you and you think you're interested, at the very least, you gotta go to the Kickstarter project page. I'm going to have a card up in the top corner of the screen. It's been there the whole time. And down in the description section of the video, there will be the link as well. Go to that link. At the time I'm publishing this video, there's only like 10 to 12 days left, so you gotta go and check it out, see if it's right for you, find out more information than I could possibly tell you here, and hopefully consider backing Magecraft from Crimson Production. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon, and make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.